You were given one to Colleen a long time
I
ago.
did, yeah.
Should I look for it, or do you
Yeah,
wanna make me?
this email is my personal email, not my
So we
township.
change it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not changing anything, it's your form, so you can do that, thank you. So this was all the stuff filled out before, but now it's to remove Rich and add Harold, because he was not on there, sorry.
I'm well, thanks. Evening, everybody.
I spent a fill-in last week, it was all good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Is this copy your work, Dennis? Did you make me a copy of this?
Sheila, but the sound flash drive, where we put it?
Jeff, would you help out? He has a flash
Good,
drive,
sir.
that
How are
doesn't
you?
show up on the screen up there. How will we do that? No one ever provided me with instructions. But I can learn.
IT man.
I don't see it on the, I would think we would just have to turn it on. I just don't know if it's on the TV or the keyboard.
I think it's that remote there, right? Turn the TV on here.
And you don't see anything on the keyboard, right, for USB. Some of the newer stuff,
You're
you know.
supposed to be in the water.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
That was just a tough
All right, now it's not yelling to help.
And no, it's not even there. Oh, is this the?
Well, right now, it's not moving.
That was an
I
example,
wanna
so
put it on
no,
the computer.
you only have to sign this page.
Maybe.
Let me go into, yeah, these were the previous. Nope, just this top one. Alright,
We advanced the slides.
yep, you can wait on his red folder, just pass it down.
That keyboard.
I got it.
I made 2 copies, so I have a copy in case I need it down the road.
Cut the check for that,
Thank you.
right, you're paying that stuff? Yep. Thank you, Jeff.
No, we didn't get there yet, so.
My husband will put it on for me for Christmas.
I say, should I be worried?
Nah, not today. I would have liked to come over and test
Get your
it.
battery.
Great start.
You get your battery.
Yeah.
Frank got one.
That's this one.
So that was that on that?
Excellent.
No, this is a separate one.
Can I call you?
Oh, okay.
I could only do,
Yeah, thank
my
you.
best was 151. That was 1231 and then.
And then Mr. Bittler, she asked if you could just verify that your information's correct on your profile, rather than that you're good. Kristen from the bank, this is all bank papers.
I think he went through Bergen Mac, the next side.
You need to fill in one.
I think the cold crank is probably well warm, but I'm not overly concerned if it's inside.
Yeah, no, the
You
ones,
need to fill
I
out
told
one
Kenny I
line
had 3
here, I
sitting
can
next
go
to
to
her,
the township manager.
and it was a phone call, you call.
I think it needs to be signed.
It
Yeah,
says
yeah.
occupation.
You know, and he's out the road riding the truck, it's just a matter of
Occupation,
finding
it
it.
says occupation title, I don't know
Yeah.
why they did that.
But yeah,
I
I
said
called
the
him
township
145,
manager.
which I was down the last 2 days, that dying, I'm retired. Disease.
That's fine, or you don't have to
I
put
wasn't
anything,
even there
that's
last night, I was like, you guys figured it out.
Anything.
No, he called me this morning.
Oh, yeah, they have
Yeah, Frank.
Hey, Ron.
Bergen Mac, they had like for 1025 or something like that.
Alright, I think we're all good.
Yeah, someone
No,
knows.
it must be like,
My only thought after like 10 minutes.
yeah,
wow.
that's what I'm wondering, but
Was
like,
where they were at.
the 950s that I carry are supposedly the better of the
I think
Because
I think
I
the
just
same.
2 or 4 batteries, so I just
Yeah,
straight.
to go to the.
Yeah, well, like, I need 3, at least I can get started.
Yeah, we were smelling for like.
That's not my fault. That's just not.
Ordering? What is that?
Manager over?
if they're,
Folder,
a month
yep.
goes by and
Go
they
back
don't
right
work.
there.
Yeah, this shows them as going, we had one go out.
And then he would just
Well,
choose
no,
the flash drive.
Actually, they're only replacing.
Yeah,
The
it should
meter
be-
was sitting on the
Yeah,
black house.
right there, yeah, USB memory. Right up at Friday. Actually,
See, us old people
I'm
figured
serious,
it
we're
out.
getting turbine, we're getting into.
Because that fucking sewer lays them down.
And then you just double click it.
Now it's moving.
It's working, don't worry about that. Alright, there it is.
Yay.
There's a symbol.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, click close on it, bottom left. See if it, there you go.
Yeah, just hit F5 too, it'll play it.
Close the whole thing.
Might be back. It's just trying to go through its startup, so it's bringing everything else up, just have to close them.
I close that thing.
And it keeps closing it, then maybe it has something to do with the PowerPoint.
Product key.
What's it saying?
Signing with Microsoft.
Use as view only, we're good, I don't need to edit it.
I couldn't even read that.
You should be able to read it now, you got the perfect eyeballs now.
From that distance, I do, I don't know what you're doing there.
Okay, there we go. Is there other business you have to do before you get there?
Well, when we do the pledge, roll call, and citizens' concerns, and then you're like up fairly quickly, soon fairly quickly.
We'll also be on YouTube Live.
Woo!
Forever and ever, as they say.
I'll see how many views I get so I can brag to my dogs.
Did you get my email? I could put a discount for the.
Really matching though, you gotta put a lot towards a lot.
Oh,
I didn't read it.
I didn't take notice, I didn't read the whole thing.
A lot of those expansion are matching.
We get another grant from somewhere else. That's what we try to do. A couple of chicken barbecues.
Don't pay for the receipt.
We usually make them when you show up, about $1,000. Oh, yeah. That's it, we used to try to shoot for $1,000 on every event. But you know, it's a shit lot of work for $1,000. Oh, yeah. Usually go where this, the chairman of the Arthritis Foundation, and I come up with this ingenious idea when wings are really popular. I went to all the places that sold wings and got them to donate their wings. We have a thing at the Sheraton where they all bring it, and we would charge $35 a piece to get it. So that they give away their food.
I run politics.
This is too good to be true. That's like, and we did it for a number of years. Yeah, well, kind of wings started falling out of favor and. Just gotta think of something that nobody else is, you know?
Alright, we will call the Robeson Township September 19th meeting to order. We'll first do a pledge allegiance and we're gonna start on prepare for the anthem.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Folks, there's been a question to me, several questions about the agenda not being on the website. I'm not sure why that didn't happen, but a number of people have reached out to me. I'm hoping that we can do a little better job putting that on the website.
Well, we have a little bit of a manpower shortage right now, and they got it on as soon as today as they possibly could,
Okay,
but
well, that wasn't in compliance, Mr. Steve, with really what should be done. And
Well,
in the
sir,
efforts of,
we-
in
we
the
have
efforts
some
of
concerns.
I
transparency.
think the legal
With respect-
requirement is
Well,
supposed to.
forget the legal requirement, Mr. Steve, we have people that wanna see what's going on. So it's unrealistic in today's day and
I
age
think
to
it's on
expect
there now,
somebody
Jeff.
to come to the township building and look
Can
at
you
the
check and see
agenda.
if it's on there
Well,
now?
you know what, that's true, but then it's
On
our
there
job,
now doesn't help.
it's our job to try and help make it happen.
I wonder why you bring up
Okay.
petty
Alright,
things that have
I
not.
don't think the agenda is
business.
petty,
Alright,
I think it's not at all.
going to citizens' concerns, any citizens' concerns tonight? Well, if not, then
Empty
it's all you.
citizens.
That means you've been doing a good job, right? Is that happy? Alright, we'll see what they are after your lecture, right? I'm Chuck Freelander, I'm the actuary for the borough's retirement plans, the township, excuse me. Township has 3 plans, we're gonna talk about the non-uniform pension plan and the police pension plan. The third plan is a defined contribution plan that all new employees go in. So the non-uniform pension plan is frozen to new employees. So part of my job is to do the actuarial valuation, which is basically a snapshot of the plan. We compare assets and liabilities and then use that to determine how much needs to be contributed over the next couple of years. Okay, part of that process is the minimum municipal obligation, which has to be presented to the supervisors every September for the following year's contribution.
If you guys wanna see this, you get a stiff neck, but
Yeah, you guys can move up, turn your chairs around. So I'll give a little introduction, because I haven't spoken to you guys in a very long time. I've been practicing just meeting with the manager, and we do these evaluations every other year. 2 years ago, was in the midst of COVID, nobody was traveling anywhere for meetings, so we Zoomed this 2 years ago. We're gonna talk about the valuation results, experience, potential some changes in the actuarial assumptions, a little bit about ASB 67 to 68, which are your financial disclosures, and a discussion of risk. So a little introduction, I'm Chuck Friedlander, I'm a consulting actuary, and I'm the president and chief actuary of my firm, Municipal Finance Partners. I have degrees in mathematics, actuarial science track, business and economics from Carnegie Mellon University. I've been working with municipal pension plans and post-retirement benefit plans for over 40 years. And I've been working with Robeson Township probably for 25 years. So what do? Well, part of it is what I'm doing here, preparing the actuarial valuation, which sets forth the funding requirements. Part of that is the Act 205 reporting form, which is due in March. It's electronically filed. We'll be talking about that. When I complete the reports, I'm gonna have the forms done too, so we can wrap it all up at once. So I assist with the preparation of the minimum municipal obligation, which is your pension budget, and the AG 385 form, which is a form you fill out to make sure you get the right amount of state aid to help fund the plans. Also provide information to the auditors for the township financial statements. When people terminate and retire, we calculate their benefit or any election forms that are needed. And just generally consulting. When Sheila has a question, she gives me an email or a ring, and I help her out.
Thank you.
So Act 205 imposes funding requirements on all municipal pension plans. That's what the MMO is about. Despite these rules, the plans could become underfunded. For example, you have a series of losses, a couple of bad investment years, increases in benefits. Without these rules, it can get even worse. The state plans, for example, don't have funding requirements. Instead of being close to 178, 90% funded like ours, theirs are in the 50s and 60s. As a matter of fact, nationwide, I just read this today, that municipal pension plans are about 75% funded. The concept that we operate on is what's called intergenerational equity. For example, in the police pension plan, the officers' salaries are paid out of current tax revenues. The cost for the patrol cars, all that stuff is paid out of current tax revenues. The costs for the lights and heats are paid out of current tax revenues. Well, the idea of intergenerational equity is to fund the employees and the officers' benefits during their working career, so that the money's there when they retire, not to kick those costs out to the next generation. So here's the MMO history for the police. As you can see, in 2000, 2001, the contributions were higher. They're made up of three pieces. The blue piece is the normal cost. That's basically an amount per officer to fund the current cost of the plan. The red piece is to fund the administrative and investment expenses, and the green piece is to fund the unfunded liability. You'll notice that the green piece went away. That's because the plan became 100% funded a couple of years back. This is the non-uniform plan. You'll notice, see that blue piece, the normal cost has gone way down. This is a frozen plan, and as people terminate and retire, I think we're down to January 1st, 2023, we're down to 3 active employees. So you don't have a normal cost anymore, okay, because there's not many people working. The red is the administrative expense, and the green piece again is the amortization of the unfunded liability. And you notice we still have one, but that piece has come down in recent years. So this is how we fund the MMO. The green amount is the state aid. That's the amount the state sends you each year. And the purple is the amount that the township contributes. So you look for the non-uniform, the township or the state aid's been covering most of it for the last couple of years, and going forward it's going to cover even more because our costs have come down. Get this right. We see a similar thing for the police. The blue is the member contributions. That's the officers contributing 5% of pay. That red piece, when we don't have an amortization to fund an unfunded liability, and we have a surplus, we take 10% of that surplus and reduce the contribution. Okay, so of the piece that's, the whole MMO piece, part of it's funded by the employees, part of it's funded by the excess, and the rest is funded by the township. So generally, the township is putting the state aid, allocating state aid to non-uniform, putting in whatever is needed to fund that, and funding the police with township money. It's really kind of irrelevant, because what happens in your life is you get one check from the state, and then you write 2 checks out of the general fund to cover the plan, and that's all township money, but you've been reimbursed by the state. So, for the police, here's the assets and liabilities. You can see that both grown over recent years, and then both have shrunk. The liabilities by a little, the assets by a lot. We had a very bad investment year in 2022. So that shows the impact of that. And also the funding percentage, however, again, when we use the market value of assets, you're my only client that doesn't use something called actuarial smoothing. Under smoothing, we take, instead of recognizing all the market gains and losses immediately, we spread them out over 5 years. And you get a much smoother ride. But back in the last time we had a market downturn in 2008, we did 2009 evaluation, the township decided let's take this by the horns, let's pay for it now instead of spreading it out over future years. The market went back up and contributions came down. You'll see from 2009 going forward, the plan became better and better funded. Then we had a bad period, now we're back up, and the police plan is again grown from 103 to 106% funded since the last valuation. Similar story for the non-uniform. Again, the blue is chasing the red piece, and we're getting more and more funded. And again, the assets peaked out at the end of 2021, but by the end of 2022, they've fallen a bit. And nevertheless, the funding percentage only decreased by a little bit from 90.6 to 87. So the police plan is over 100% funded, the non-uniform is about 87% funded. So what happened? What made these changes from 2 years ago? Well, the investment for the police, we had an investment loss of about $500,000. That means the assets are about $500,000 short of where we thought they'd be 2 years ago. And why is that? Well, we had a real bad market year. We lost 16.69% in 2022, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been because we had a positive market return of a big 14.12 in 2021. The other thing that happened is we had experience gain that was larger than the asset loss. Why did this happen? Well, we had two terminations, two officers terminated, and one chose, instead of getting a future vested pension, to just take his contributions out. So that caused an even bigger gain. Salary increases were less than the actuarial assumptions. Nobody got disabled, and then there was a small loss because we had fewer retiree deaths than expected. And why did I say no one got disabled? Well, disability is very uncommon. When you have a small group, it's very hard to predict them. But the benefits are very generous. If a young officer gets disabled, he's going to get 50% of pay for the rest of his life. You know, and that could be starting in his 20s or 30s. So try to keep your officers from getting disabled. We fund for that. You'll see how we fund for that. But even though we fund for it, even if you have one disability, that's going to cause a significant loss. On the non-uniform side, again, we had a big investment loss. The market return is about 14.4 and a negative 16. We had a small experience loss of about 27 grand or fewer retiree deaths than expected, and we had some gains from terminations and lower salary increases, so they offset each other. When you get up within 1.6% of your predicting your liabilities, you pretty much say you got it right. So the non-uniform demographics, as I said before, this plan membership is frozen, and the new employees go into the defined contribution. So we have 3 active members, 2 of them are eligible to retire. So we've only got 1 person with a normal cost. The other thing is with such a short future service, any changes in liability have to be amortized over very short periods of time. So it's one of those things that can become very volatile. The other thing is that your amortization bases are mostly expired. When we do amortizations, we amortize them over the average future service of the plan participants. So when most of your plan participants got to retirement age, and we amortize things over short periods, a couple of valuations later, they're paid off. So even though this plan's cost should be going up, the fact that you funded it well in the future kept it from really doing that. And again, the demographics of the plan. So you can see the investment returns are quite volatile. But you can also see before this last bad year, we had 3 really good years. Investments in the non-uniform plan are pretty much the same asset allocation. It's pretty much the same look at chart. Mortality table. We're using kind of a dated mortality table that was really designed for corporate pension. We use a very light rate of turnover. We use a standard disability rates. 50% for the non-uniform police are much more likely to become disabled. And we assume for the police plan, because it has a survivor pension, that officers are married when they die, so that benefit will be paid. the economic assumptions, we updated this 2 years ago. We dropped the interest rate assumption from 6.25, or 6.5 to 6.25. We dropped it from 7.5 to 7 to 6.5 over the years to become more conservative and take some of the volatility out of the contributions. We assume salaries increased by 5% per year, which is probably higher than, well, definitely higher than what's in your police contract. We also have to account for periods of really high inflation and promotions during a person's career. So for example, if a contract has a 3% increase in it, we're gonna use a 4.5 to 5% assumption. So this is the cost method, this is the actuarial science part that I have to apologize for having these. But this method we use is called the entry age cost method. Each valuation, we look at a person's future expected benefit payments, and we have a funding chart to fund from his entry age, his higher age, to his retirement age. Each year is the annual cost for that year, and because the salaries assumption is 5% increase a year, each of those lines goes up by 5% a year. Okay, so the temperature to fund benefits is 11% payroll, but sometimes you don't have as much. The value of the lines to your left, the past lines, are how much you should have. That's the actual accrued liability. And if you had your assets were equal to the actual accrued liability, your cost would be those normal costs for everybody. But usually it's a little higher, a little lower, so that's why we have amortization payments and funding adjustments. So here's the actuarial value benefits. You'll see it in the non-uniform plan. The biggest piece is retired members, and disabled members, and the orange is vested form members. So the active members are a very small piece of that pie. We fund for active retirement and very small amounts for disability and death benefits, because the one employee who's not yet in retirement doesn't have a lot of time to become disabled yet. So those decrease in value the closer you're gonna get, because more likely it is you'll get your retirement. For the police, you'll see it's again a less mature plan. The active members are more than half of it, but we still have a very significant retiree piece and vested former member piece, and the green piece to the right are the drop account balances. So that's the money due to the police drop members. So the non-uniform plan. I talked about the actuarial accrued liability. The actuarial accrued liability and what we should have funded is really the sum of the red and the blue piece, and that red and green. And that blue piece is your future normal cost. Okay, so there's past costs and normal costs. You can see how mature this plan is. The normal cost is a tiny little sliver. Okay, now the green piece is the assets. That's how much you funded. So the red piece is the unfunded liability. So when we have a contribution, we're contributing a normal cost to fund the blue piece, and the amortization payment funds the red piece. The police is a different story. The bar on the left is the division between the past and future costs. You can see it's a bigger portion than it is from non-uniform. Also, the assets are greater than the actual accrued liability, so I can't make a pie. I figured I'm gonna make a pie with a negative piece in it. So the assets are in that sweet spot, bigger than the actual accrued liability, but less than the total present value benefits. If your assets were greater than the total present value benefits, you wouldn't have an MMO. Your contribution is 0, and it might impede the amount of state aid you get, because they don't give you more than you need. So the current mortality table is outdated. It's based on corporate plan experience. The table that most municipalities and public employee pension plans are using now is called the Pulp 2010 table. There's 3 different tables. There's one for safety officers, which is police, general for non-uniform employees, and one other for teachers. One of the things they found out when they created this table compared it to the corporate is that police tend to live longer than blue-collar employees in the corporate world. Non-uniform employees tend to live longer than white-collar employees, and teachers live like forever. So we also use a mortality improvement scale. because we know mortality will continue to improve in the future, although that improvement has been slow, okay? And what happened when we made this table, we were using the RP 2014 table with the mortality improvement scale was 4, 5, 6 years old. So I was gonna update that, and it was one of the things that happened over that period is they've gotten less optimistic about future mortality improvement. So when we changed that scale, it offset the improved mortality from the base table. So the net change isn't really very much. Now again, with COVID-19, we don't really know the long-term improvements. They didn't release an MP 2022 table because they didn't trust the data, that it would be persistent. So we're gonna sit on that and see what happens in the future. So here's the police MMO. The first column is what it would be, this is the 2023. 2024 is gonna be a little bit different, it's gonna have a little different payroll. But the first line is what it was based on the prior valuation, and the next two are based on the new valuation. One with the prior mortality table, and the second one with the new mortality table. And you see a very small change, brings down the normal cost by just about $1,500. So similar with the non-uniform, experience brought the contribution levels down, as we have a smaller amortization because we pay bases off. We have a smaller normal cost because we don't have any active people before retirement, many. So, and you'll see that the mortality change brings that one down slightly as well. So what happens if if the state aid stays the same, and we continue to allocate it to the non-uniform plan, what's gonna happen is that contribution, and again, for 2023, you're gonna owe probably a net of about $41,000 for the non-uniform plan. That's gonna come down to about $13,400, and if we change the mortality table, that's actually gonna go away altogether and free up about $350 of state aid to help the police plan. Then when we get to the police plan funding, again, we're seeing a little lower contribution, so the net bill for the police plan this year is about $104,000. It would come down to about $79,700, with the new valuation to about $75,000 if we do the assumption change. So there's the total contribution with the changes, the blue being the police and the red being the non-uniform. So a little bit about GASB and your financial statements. This has been effective almost 10 years now, and basically pension net liabilities are reported as part of your balance sheet. And there's a lot more disclosures, a lot more work to do than there used to be. Hey, don't do that. Also, a discussion of risk. When we do these valuations and I calculate these liabilities, we're basically talking about expected values of the mean of the distribution. We don't really calculate standard deviations or what range these contributions might be 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road. It would be too expensive to do that for all these plans. But there are risks, and so the actuarial standards require us to discuss these risks with our clients. And I'm going to talk about each risk each of the different types of risks. The biggest, largest risk is investment risk. You can see the big gains and losses from this year that happen when the markets do funny things. So how do we do this? Well, we moderate this risk. Sometimes we use actuarial smoothing to smooth out the fluctuations themselves. But when we have gains and losses, we amortize those over future years rather than recognizing all the loss in one year. So we try to, smooth out the risk, but again, it's going to have an impact on your contributions. That's the main factor that drives increases and decreases in the contribution requirements. This is asset and liability mismatch risk. The pension plan liabilities are basically bonds, they're fixed promises you made, and they're, in corporate plans, you kind of have to fund it like it's a fixed liability. The liabilities, instead of setting an interest rate like we have at 6.25, they float based on corporate bond rates. And, so when we invest in things that aren't bonds, okay, we're taking a risk. The increased investment returns we get from investment stocks are really a risk premium. And there are those who think, well, we should just be investing in bonds and value things in bonds, and it's a whole group of people called financial economics. And so coming next valuation, again, I'm just taking a peek at this as an informational thing, but for measurement dates after February 15th of this year, and again, this is a 1/1/2023 valuation, we'll be required to show you what the risk-free obligation is, what the risk-free rate is. And I may use treasury curves or yield curves for this, but what I did was I used the 10-year treasury rate and just saw what it did to the liabilities, okay? So what we're funding on the police is we've got that green piece that's the liability, and we have the assets that are slightly higher. If we use this risk-free liability, we end up with our red piece, which is huge. Okay, and what happens is the normal cost alone doubles, increases from 88 to 159,000. The amortization payment instead of being overfunded, you have an amortization payment of about 30,000, and the contribution cost of 200 grand if you take the risk out of all your investments. Similarly, for the non-uniform plan, same story. The normal cost increases from about 8 grand to 12 grand. The amortization increases 140 grand, and now we're talking of contributions of 240 grand. This is why we invest. So to me, what I learned from this is why we invest in regular things like stocks and bonds and a mixed diversified portfolio, so we don't have to contribute this huge amount. Anything you don't get on the investment returns, you have to contribute. So interest rate risks. As interest rates rise, and we've seen this in the last couple of years, those are really good if you're buying bonds because you can get high yields on it. But if your fund already owns a bunch of bonds, it's bad because their value goes down. And I like to look at what caused the changes in the interest rates. Inflation that causes yield rates to go up and the bond values to go down is also eventually going to cause your stock prices to rise, because companies own things, and when things are worth more, they get more for them when stock prices rise. Longevity and demographic risk. This is the potential of demographic experience that's going to differ from what we expect. The disabilities are a perfect example. If something like that happens, it changes the plan. So what do? We update mortality tables periodically to recognize the increased longevity, which we're doing here. We review the experience, the assumptions of each valuations, and there are even greater limitations to predicting events in smaller plans. So it's important to be conservative. And finally, contribution risk. This is the risk that contributions deviate from what's expected. It's not a big risk for municipal plans because you have an MMO, but due to the timing of everything, there are always going to be small contribution gains and losses. For example, this MMO, the MMO for 2023 was based on the 2021 valuation because we prepared it in 2022 before we had this done, or could have this done. For county and state plans that don't have contribution requirements, it's what the industry calls agency risk, and I call it a moral hazard. And finally, one of the things we like to look at as far as risk is maturity. The more mature a plan is, the more risk there is. We could see, for example, over the last 20 years, the police assets have gone from about 2 times payroll to about 8 times payroll. So the value of that pension fund has increased compared to the size of the township itself. And you see the same thing with the non-uniform, not really quite so much, although the assets have increased, but since you only have 3 people in it, the payroll's decreased a lot too. So that one's kind of skewed is because it's a closed plan. And other maturity measures is your cash flow. And you can see that over the years, the cash flow has gone negative and been very low. that's not like a problem, that's why we have a pension fund. You know, we've been funding, you know, hopefully when people retire and start taking money out, we've funded their benefits. Okay, but it does point out that when the cash flow is zero or negative, that you're more dependent on the fund for the investment return for the fund to grow. Are there any questions?
Could you repeat that? Chuck, you didn't talk about anything about the defined contribution.
No, I do not.
I mean, I know what it is, but there's probably people out there wondering why.
Okay. In order to stabilize the costs of the plan, and defined contribution plans are different than defined benefit plans in terms of, in defined benefit plan, you're promised a certain pension, and how much it costs to fund it is based on experience, and it's the township's requirement to fund it. In the defined contribution plan, the contribution to your account is defined, and what you get out of it is based on experience. So the defined contribution plan, all the risk in terms of what benefit you're gonna get in retirement is based on how well the fund's investment return. So the risk is borne by the participants. Now, the defined contribution plan has a contribution of 5% of pay
Something.
plus an extra
$500
$500 for the person,
For free.
each employee.
per year.
And that was established 2 or 3 years ago, so. any
3 or 4
new-
years.
Okay. Right now, as of 1/1/23, there were 2 employees in it.
Correct.
And you're making their contributions on a payroll basis.
On a monthly basis, it's the end of month, and so it's typically a 2 payroll, but sometimes it's 3, it's 10%.
10% gotcha.
A number of years ago, we changed investment companies. Do you think that helped our maintenance of the fund?
I have a chart that I can show you because since 2010, when I figure out every fund's investment return, I have a chart where I can keep it. Now, I compare small plans with $100 million plans, so it's not all that scientific. But what it would show is that if I compared you to the average client, that they go up and down about the same time. In other words, the market's gonna do what the market's gonna do. Any gauge you're gonna have over the average client can be in the margins. Maybe you take a little less risk and you do better in lean times, maybe you take more risk and do better in good times and worse in lean times. But it's not, the investment returns have really helped you become a better funded plan. Whether those investment returns are due to the investment manager, I can't really say. Is that fair?
I mean, those things are pretty well funded.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like we have a big contribution to make here anywhere. It's
right, yeah,
at 106%, and what is the other one, 97?
yeah, 87.
87.
Yeah, and again, that's the closed plan. It's 87 because you had a bad year in the market. After this year, it's probably gonna be, you know, if we have 2 good years, it's gonna be well over 100%.
And if it pleases the board, on my agenda portion, I have some stuff with the MMO we need to pay out for 2023, that was created, the resolution in 2022. And then a resolution is to be signed for the 2024, and I put on here, explain the process. So I just wanna explain it while Chuck's here. So we have to, at a certain date, he tells me when it's required by, look at the salary to date, use that money for the police and the non-uniform, do a projection for the end of the year. So our resolution that we're signing tonight is based on a projection for next year. That is how it's done. So that actual will sometimes change, however, what that contribution is will stay the same, is that correct?
For the defined benefit plan, it's based on estimated 2023 payroll for employees as of the date you're doing the calculation, the determination date. So we know what the payroll is today, we need to estimate it for the rest of the year. But once we make that estimate, once you present the MMO, for 2 pension plans, that's your contribution for next year. You can use state aid to help fund it, but ultimately that's what has to be deposited. for the defined contribution plan, we don't know, one of those two employees could leave, you could add a third or a fourth employee. So for the defined contribution plan, it's an estimate for budget purposes. What you're going to actually pay depends on how many people
Correct.
are working and what their salary is.
That's how we get to the numbers that we present to you and have you sign. And I have both of those items. And also there was correction to the resolution from last year. It was created in December. It said to be paid out in 2022 and it should have said 2023. So that's one of my questions to Solicitor Orlando. Do we need to do an amendment to the previous year's resolution?
You can't go back and amend something you already adopted.
So we have to create a
You can
new
revise-
one?
You can revise or correct something in the current time and place. No, you don't go back and
So
think that you amended something before. There's
So-
an error, you need to address the error in the current action of the board.
So we would make a new resolution and put a copy in our minute book or within our resolution book binder, so we know that there was an error there. So I'm not saying go back and amend the 2022, but that means we need to make a new one to correct that, right? We're not supposed
It
to let
needs
it
to
go.
be corrected, yes, it should
Okay.
be done by resolution.
That was all I just wanted to bring up the MMOs so you guys can get explained why Chuck was here.
Yeah, that turned out to be the source of the problem, because the long amounts got contributed, last year you put it in 2023.
Correct.
2022, but it's very easy to do because we're gonna do an MMO for 2024, now we have to make a contribution, you gotta remember, that's for 2024.
Correct.
The one from this year was presented a year ago.
You got it. And that's all I have.
Good.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you all for having me.
We needed
You have a fun drive back.
your flash drive.
Yes.
They can just pull it out of the front of that little silver one there, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
Have a safe
Thanks for
drive
having me,
home.
because I said before, 2 years ago I didn't get to come out. I'm seeing a lot of people for the first time in 4 years, and it's nice.
All right, have a good evening.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
And then continue in correspondence, we see information from the Pioneer Crossing landfill. That the free fall cleanup is Saturday, October 28th, 2023, from 7 AM until 11 AM. And our packet 2 is information from Schuylkill River Greenways. They provided a request to provide financial support in the 2024 budget. And then the other part in our correspondence is Senator Scott Martin, 2023 Senior Expo, Friday, October 13th, 2023, from 10 AM to noon at St. John's Center Church in East Earl, Pennsylvania. All right, Chief.
Good evening, board. First item on the agenda, I had the conversation with State Rep Mark Dillon. I did follow up with a call on Monday, and he is going to be speaking with PennDOT to see what he can do to help us get signs on Route 10 relative to the horse and buggy traffic. So he's supposed to give me a call back once he gets somewhere or nowhere, depending, I guess. I also used that opportunity when we had a conversation about Praxis, about the escape, so we had a little bit of a discussion about that as well. Item number 2.
Can you share that discussion, Chief?
Yeah, what we were discussing is just the issues with Praxis and communications. How could be a better job be done when there is an escape, in the event that would happen again in the future. What had taken place this time was reverse 911, which worked for the people that subscribe or the people that still have landlines. But there's a lot of people that have cell phones that it doesn't work for. We put a posting on our social media platform, however, that's only good for people that are browsing. And also, it's a little bit hard for us to keep up with that while we're being very active with the investigation. So in turn, just like any major incidents, we all try to look at the incidents and do like a lessons learned and try to do better next time. And there's a lot of moving parts, which I'll get into also in my agenda, some things that we're trying to do to change some things.
Well, the state police somehow got people's cell numbers and they were calling cell numbers in those address areas.
Yeah, some people are registered, and that whole reverse 911, they activate that communication center, and that's how that occurs.
And I also called Mark Gillen because I was a little perturbed about the whole thing went. Now, this is like, kind of like the third major incident in this many months. So he did say that they were gonna get with the judiciary committee and do a review of what's going on up there and see whether they can't make it better. I also called him about the 911 funding, the call center funding, and he said absolutely they will not let that fail. They will make sure that we get the funding done. So we're sending a letter anyway.
Good.
Chief, there was some type of activity at the facility that preceded the breakout, and I didn't know what it was, what happened, it actually started.
There was some bad information that said there was a riot. It was
Yeah.
not a riot. Okay, so some information got out, I think from maybe even a police department, not ours, but initially it came out as a riot, and this incident was not initiated by a riot. But that activity that you're speaking of was all the same incident. Second item on the agenda is I provided the board with an agreement, which is relative to our DUI grant. It's up for renewal, so hopefully you had time to review that. If you did, and do not have any questions, I'm gonna respectfully request a motion to authorize Chairman Christopher Smith and me to sign the Northumberland Regional Traffic Service Grant.
I'll make the motion to sign that traffic grant application.
I'll second.
Who got the second? Yeah.
Alright, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you, Gord. Most of the other agenda items will be covered on Thursday night. I just want some updates under other business. Today, we received 4 new MCPs for our police cars. We had 3 currently. We were able to purchase 4. As the board is most likely aware, we pay a monthly fee, and we're able to get 4 with the balance of our account for that monthly fee, because basically the Chiefs Association, we picked the cheaper of the computers because we liked it better. So we were able to actually expand our MCPs in-house to 4. We are in a process, we are gonna actually install them and outfit our own vehicles. Looking at it today, we have 1 done, another 1 half done, something we believe we can do in-house, save us a little bit of money. We'd have to get some bolts and nuts to finish what we need to get done. LPR at the traffic signal down here at Gibraltar and 724 is supposed to be scheduled, or installed this month. Has yet to be installed. It is wired, they just need to put the hardware up there. Creative Customs, the board had authorized me to have the Tahoe repaired at the workshop. I called him on Friday, the Tahoe is going in tomorrow. It should only be out of service tomorrow. We should have it back at the end of the day. Relative to the Abraxas escape, we obviously, the state police handled that, but I wanted to share with you an email that was sent to Officer Ketterer. Officer Ketterer was the officer that was on duty that night. He did a great job, outstanding job in the township, and it was actually recognized by the Criminal Investigations Unit Supervisor of the state police, and his exact words are, "You did an incredible job during the whole incident. It seemed like everywhere there was a sighting, you were right there and able to coordinate with other agencies." So I just wanted the board to be aware of that, and I already told Jacob, good job, 1085. Once they made it into Robeson Township, the escapees, all of them ended up in Robeson. I'm not sure if the board is aware of that. That occurred in between 2 and 3 o'clock. I got notified at 3 o'clock and I went active from my residence at that point. During their time in Robeson Township, they committed 9 crimes. So we had 9 victims. From a stolen vehicle, which was the last, to entering cars, stealing things, some petty, some not. But they made it the way they split into 2 groups. The first group pretty much gave up. They went to a house along Mounts Road and were ringing the Ring doorbell. So they called the police. Jacob was the first officer on scene. I was second and hit the perimeter while the troopers that were following me went up the driveway with Jacob. So we wanted to box it in, because at that point, we didn't have the information that they were actually giving up. So we were trying to get a good perimeter on them, and that all worked out. And then the second group actually stole a pickup truck with a utility trailer attached. I haven't heard from state police if the keys were left in it yet, or any information that way, but they stole a pickup truck, and PSP forced them off the road at Mounts Road, in the area of Furnace Road. Actually, it was on Furnace Road, Mounts. They forced them off, they bailed on foot, and I pulled up as the foot pursuit started. I pulled up to the scene, and it was like a gray army running across the field. There were so many troopers that were right on top of them, and they got all of them in custody. They used some technology during it. Was very glad that we were able to get them all in custody, before the day progressed even further. When I went active at about 4 o'clock, 4:30, I reached out to Twin Valley Superintendent, provided him an update, and also the Director of Schools at High Point. And then Chief Stoles chimed in. We had a group text, so Chief Stoles from Carnarvon chimed in as well, and that was probably why they closed the school, which I think was a good decision to do, because we had no idea, and they were heading towards High Point. So I'm really glad that High Point, took that warning seriously. On the Abraxas escape, we discussed today at the Berks Chiefs meeting. There's some discussion with the district attorney. The reason why our juveniles are detained at Abraxas, that's our detention center, is because Berks County no longer has a juvenile detention center. Okay, the beds, there are very few to no beds at Abraxas. So that poses a problem to us in law enforcement. When we have a juvenile that commits a serious offense and we have allegations to file, we have to try to find a bed. Juvenile probation has to try to find a bed. And what we're experiencing is sometimes those beds are in Montgomery County. Okay, that's not doing our local law enforcement any justice. Okay, for me to pull, sometimes I might only have one car on, to pull that car to transport a juvenile to Montgomery County when it could be in Berks County. So what our initiative is, we are hoping to get some attention to the county commissioners to consider reopening the Berks County Juvenile Detention Facility. So what I would like to do is scribe a letter to the county commissioners, sign it, and also have the board sign it or Chairman Smith sign it, and just express our support for the county considering opening the Juvenile Detention Center. And like I said, that's an initiative that's coming from the district attorney's office down. If that's something the board thinks you might be interested in, you don't have to make that motion tonight, but we can pull it up at the next meeting. But something I'd at least like the board to consider.
Did the county close their facility because of budget restraints?
Well,
Deal.
they closed it years ago. I don't recall the exact years, but I can say that law enforcement was never part of that decision, so they didn't ask us our opinion.
They just did it.
Yeah, so what the reason for that decision, Supervisor Brown, I honestly don't know. If I told you, I'd be making it up.
I didn't know either, that's why I asked you.
Yeah.
See if you knew more than I did.
I can research it, I'm sure I can find out. I'm planning to call the chief probation officer tomorrow, because there's a few questions I have, and I can try to find an answer out from him. So if I find that out, I'll let you know. I'll forward an email to the board.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the chief to draft a letter that we'll all sign in support of reopening the juvenile detention center at Berks.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bitler. Yes. Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
All right, thank you, board, and I'll get on that. And I have nothing further this evening unless the board has any questions for me. All right, thank you.
Good, thank you, Chief. All right, we got finance and Sheila.
Would the board like to make a motion to approve the monthly expenses?
I'll make that motion.
Before we do that, I'd like to just make a quick comment about looking at some of the expenses over here, and I'd just like to note to the public that over the past few months, we've been paying a lot more for our code services with our current company than we have with our previous company, so significant difference. Just wanted to note that.
Was there a change in services, Mr. Rhodes, to your knowledge?
No.
And you've looked at those bills?
I have.
And what do you find the differences?
Cost.
I mean, when you say
It's
cost,
cost.
are they
It's costing a lot more.
are they doing
We're not
unnecessary work?
getting, we're charging the public more for permits, right, than what our previous company did, so. There's a multitude
The
of things.
permit schedule is set.
I think it's something we should just sit down and look at and compare to really determine whether that was a good decision or not, and what we do moving forward in the future.
I was looking at that info, and it's hard to put your finger on it, because it looks like they calculate things a little bit different than the previous guys. And, you know, the way you pay monthly is dependent on the amount of people getting permits issued, so it's a little hard to put your finger on it.
Well, you have to look at the quality of services as well. You know, I, for one, was not satisfied with Craft Codes. I mean, there's no bones about it, I wasn't satisfied. I haven't had any complaints yet on.
I mean, Harold, you and I discussed that before, you know.
Yeah.
You discussed it, said that you thought it was a lot.
Like I said,
higher,
I just haven't had enough time to look at the data and see.
I mean, you
I wanna
saw
compare
the
apples to
same
apples.
things I saw, so.
Yeah. Yeah, on the surface, you're right, it does look like it's costing us more, but like I said, I haven't had a chance to
I mean,
analyze it.
sometimes $13,000 more in comparison, or $8,000 to $11,000 more, I mean, it's significantly higher. So.
Well, without considering the minutia, without considering the details of it, you're not really.
Go ahead, Sheila, I just wanted to make that
Okay,
mention.
I'm keeping a file, just so you know, that runs Technicon, but, because we have to
Yeah, I do.
remember that the expenses, we also are bringing in money from the residents for the application, so we always have to look at that to see what the difference is, and we can make a comparison to last year.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is, because they're also the SEO, so I'm trying to keep that separated, so any invoices coming in, I've started a file, so
Yeah, I
once
can
we
see the
start
SEO
looking at
stuff on here, yeah.
once we start looking at the budget, we can look at what the actuals are to date and make a comparison to, because like Mr. Bittler's saying, we don't know, say it was for 10 permits for Technicon, maybe it was only 5
Sure.
permits for craft.
Sure,
So
but
we
it's
gotta
high.
make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
So, now Harold made the motion, does anyone second for the expenses?
I'll make I'll second.
Alright,
So we have roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
and then we changed the wording, and I agree with Harold, we've talked about this before. Motion to accept the treasurer's report and sewer aging report, cause you're really, it's not approving it, you're just accepting it, so would anyone like to make a
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Thank you.
And I'll second, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
And have you gentlemen thought about potential dates in October for the budget? And I would like to, whatever your first meeting date is, try to have it to you a week beforehand. So my goal is to have it done by the end, our part through the end of October, so you guys can look at all of it with the actuals, the projected actuals and proposal for next year. Now, we've talked about a few things, ARPA, Keith Showalter's 20,000 we had budgeted in for that, Act 537 for Allegheny Corridor, that was 20,000 out of the general. But the rest of the ARPA money, we need to look at that to see how much we have for the trucks. Later on, we'll talk about those quotes that Barry provided. Alright, so set dates, any dates?
I would say, for me, any dates that, except for Wednesdays, and whatever, obviously, dates that conflict with any township
Can we do
meetings.
it before the meeting, like spend a half an hour before the meetings?
I don't
Or
know,
do
I
you
think
want
we need
us-
more time for a half hour.
Well, I mean, and other dates, I'm just saying, like, how many dates, how much
Well, I think
time
our
do you need?
first meeting should just be a budget by itself, and then
Okay.
we can always add it to the agenda, if we want to have a budget meeting to the agenda at some point,
Okay,
the regulars, but, I mean, so I don't know if
How
anybody
about
has any specific.
Tuesday the 10th, we'll do the first one.
That's fine by me.
alright, October 10th, Tuesday,
Anybody
what
else?
time do you guys want, 6 or 7?
6:30 earliest.
6:30?
We'll do 7 o'clock, because all our meetings are 7 now,
Definitely
like,
7?
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at it.
Okay.
We'll keep it for now.
Mr. Rittler, do you have a preference, 6:30 or 7?
No.
Alright. And the majority will say 7?
I'm good with that. October 27th, correct?
Yep. Alright. Any other dates? Or are we just gonna go with the first one for now?
Like I said, except for Wednesdays, and anything that can fix.
So Thursday, that week is the workshop.
Okay. So the following then is the
So,
Tuesday.
I mean,
Regular.
if we're gonna advertise meetings, we would probably do it all at once, but.
That's why I'm asking for a second.
Well, you wanna do the 19th and the following Thursday? But then there's no,
Okay. Everybody good with that?
So we can advertise that on because Deborah will be in Thursday, she takes care of the advertisements. So if anybody has a change before then, I could send out an email before we actually do the advertisement. That way we can confirm and don't have to make any corrections.
any other dates, or we just doing two?
I have the 10th, what's it?
And the 19th, yeah,
19th, Thursday, the 19th.
I'll send out an email.
Try the 24th then?
Tuesday the 24th?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do that one, Jeff, 24th.
For the Halloween.
Well, this might be what this is, old trick or treat.
Guess we're gonna participate in the We're just doing those three, 10, 19, 24?
Yeah, the last time I think we did it, well, the one time we did it in 2 meetings.
Yeah, but it's gonna take a little longer because I've helped in the background, I've not had to sit. Colleen makes us go through every line in the office. We've already started doing that. I have Jeannie from Herbine working with me to do that, because we're looking at the actuals. So I provided a report last month, so when you look at those reports that show what our actual is compared to what our year budget is, you're looking for any anomalies, anything where it looks like we're really over or we're really under, because it could be an allocation issue. Because remember, Rich was new to the position and he was directing some of what was getting coded. And you have to stick to the budget. You can't decide, well, I wanna put this over here if it's been budgeted here.
Well, if we do those 3 dates, we can still maybe do the regular meeting and stuff,
Okay.
Put that on there, even just a half hour, update some stuff.
Alright, so, should I make a motion to advertise the 10th, 19th, and the 24th as budget meeting dates at 1900?
That was your motion.
That is my motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
I vote yes.
Alright, I mentioned it at the workshop, it's a motion to approve Barbara Aiken's auditor engagement letter. It only requires Chris to sign it.
And that was in our workshop packet.
Yep, I have it for you to sign as well, in the red folder.
Alright, I'll make the motion to approve Barbara Aiken's auditor engagement letter.
I'll second, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
And just a heads up, she'll be coming to the office at the beginning of December, so she'll provide me a list via email that I'll have to start getting together. I don't know who saw the boxes all in the conference room, I gather that all together for them to start the process, even though we're not the final, okay? We talked about it a little shortly ago, motion to approve the MMO for 2023. The checks are here. For the uniform, it's $104,446, and for the non-uniform, it's $114,354. There's not a check for the defined contribution as the employees contribute to that. And the township's $500, that's contributed automatically at the beginning of the year from the general fund. Mr. Orlando mentioned we have to make a new resolution. I think I have one in there, we'll have to check the folder.
No, we need to approve it.
Okay, sorry.
Alright, so I'll make a motion to approve the MMO for 2023 with the uniform contribution of $104,446 and the non-uniform contribution of $114,354.
I'll second, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
So then for F, it says motion to amend, that's incorrect, because Mr. Orlando said we can't amend it, we would have to create a new one. So to correct it. Okay. So that'll be ready for October. I mean, we already knew, I saw that it was incorrect, so it's not like it's urgent. So just we'll move on. Motion to approve the 2024 resolution 2310, and we've already went over the process.
I'll make the motion that, we approve the 2024 resolution 2310. That's the MMO for
2024, yep. And it doesn't say that.
All right, I'll second. Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
All right, I mentioned it on Thursday, and I'm not sure if Solicitor Orlando knows about ARPA, but I would like to utilize some services to help us to make sure that we are allocating and reporting it. I talked to Jeannie, she was talking to her boss, but she's not really dealt with ARPA. I don't think that it's a common thing. Mr. Orlando, do you know anything about the American Rescue Plan Act's funds relative to allocation and reporting?
Well, yeah, we can review them.
Okay.
Do I know off the top of my head? No.
No, I don't, I have a binder put together with the information our CPA provided, but it changes. So we're looking to change what we were using it for from just the sewer and something else to, buying some trucks for the public works.
My understanding is PSATs has that up to date
Okay,
revision.
well, and Harold said he was pretty sure they said we could use it for public works, equipment, and that the trucks
I
would
believe
fall.
that's correct.
Okay,
I believe other townships have done that, but we would need to verify that.
I would like to make sure that we do it correctly, so do I have the board's permission to work with Herbine and Solicitor Orlando to ensure that we're allocating and reporting our ARPA money correctly?
You're gonna send emails or whatever work you're doing to all the supervisors?
On certain things I will, but there's a lot that
On all
goes,
things.
I disagree with that, I don't have time for that, just like I don't have time to know if you've read your emails, I don't wanna send read receipts, I don't wanna do that. I will include the board as we've always done on important matters, but I won't send you everything, so as we find stuff out, I will certainly send it to all the board members.
It's not up to you to decide what's important. What I prefer is to have all of them.
Well,
I'm not
Mr.
asking for-
Bittler, you say you want
Can you let
all
me
of them,
finish,
they're not
please? Can you
important.
let me finish, please?
We've heard it for months and a year,
So I guess that's a no. You won't let me finish.
I prefer you not to, but go right ahead.
I don't understand what the problem is with getting an email. It is not that hard to include everybody in it. We have a fiscal assistant only dealing with this type of money, and I think we should be, and this type of issues. We don't have a manager, we don't have an assistant manager. I don't understand what the problem is with people at this township, we'll use it loosely, to allow everybody to have access who wants it. I'm not interested in having our chairman be a gatekeeper of information or our whatever employees. What I'm interested in seeing is contemporaneously, when somebody sends an email, those who wanna be copied, put them in the chain, and it's really easy. And you're not finding out things later. It's never been explained to me.
You're looking for all financial?
I'm looking for any email that comes in and out of this township, particularly on issues of importance.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because, they get advertisements all the time to decide to sell something, blah, blah, blah. I mean, do you really care about that?
Yeah, I wanna see it all. Don't, Mr. Steve, don't interject into what I wanna see.
No, I'm saying, do you wanna see it?
Yeah, I've been asking for a year and a half, yes, sir, I do.
Well, I would like to interject now, as an employee of the township, as well as a taxpayer, what I've found is that you hinder the process of conducting business. And you want us to send you everything, it needs to be done in a timely manner, Mr. Bittler. You say about receiving all these emails, I find you don't read the ones you get. You've been rude to our vendors and act like you don't get these things everybody else got. You waste our time.
So, well, I mean, in this front going forward, I mean, obviously with this stuff, the financial stuff, all these changes, because we are down staff.
Fortunately, Supervisor Steve is willing to come into the office and not complain about it.
And so if we can, all these things now, because obviously without an active manager and some of these things that we've discovered, just all the emails, then yes, just.
Sure. Now, can we make a motion to make sure that I'm allowed to talk to the solicitor and the,
Yeah, so, yes, we make a motion to authorize financial
Herbine.
assistant to utilize services of Herbine and Solicitor Lang. I would like to make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, Mr. Steve.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr.
No.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Not yes.
shows a pattern of behavior.
Continue, Sheila.
Okay, there's been talk about getting a bond. Mr. Bittler was elected as the assistant treasurer.
And
So are you-
So is Solicitor Rhodes.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. So I believe all of the elected officials, since they all allocate money and make decisions about that, should have a bond, as well as myself and the incoming manager. That's up to the board, however, don't you think that would be prudent for anyone who is dealing with or deciding how we allocate our monies?
No, I don't think it would be prudent, I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's costly. I'll obtain a bond, and
So-
Mr. Rhodes, if he's going to be involved, can obtain a bond. I mean, do I read this correctly?
I don't know, did you?
Oh,
Oh, the
I'm reading, what number are we on?
Alright, we're
I
on.
mean, there's 9 more from the workshop, so we're on I. All elected officials, township employees handling township funds. We don't need to do this. We haven't done it in the past, we don't need to do it now.
We can, we
Well-
still need to, somebody has to be
I
on it.
believe the second class township code requires the appointed treasurer to be bonded,
Assistant treasurer,
and the assistant treasurer to be bonded.
that's correct.
That's exactly right, and I'm looking forward to see, that bond information in the office.
So we don't, just, if,
I'll email it to you, first thing tomorrow.
I'll be in the office.
we still need to make a motion that you and Jeff can.
Well, I think that was inferred in the motion when we were appointed, we're required to.
They are
So I
required, but
I don't think we need a motion for something that's required. I don't think we need any other,
you do need a motion to expend money in the cost of the bond, so it doesn't hurt if somebody wants to make a motion now to pursue the completion of the bonding of the new assistant treasurers. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, I will make a motion that we ascertain what the bond would be and the bonds for both the assistant treasurers.
No second, roll call, Mr. Steve.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Bittler.
yes.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Not yes.
I have prepared, as our previous manager has not, in the case that there's nobody available if something were to happen to me or another staff member. So I've made sure that our part-time staff has provided keys, the public works already has keys and alarm. We've put a sign in the door in case somebody's not there to open up at 7. So I would point out that I've been there every Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, for years, making sure that our office and our wheel keeps turning. Even though there's those that have tried to create a square, and now we're back to fixing those things. So that being said, I also wanna let you know that the Herbine rep is available to handle payroll, and the part-time office staff has been trained on check depositing procedures. However, if I were to leave or something to happen to me, you would need at least 1 or 2 more financial people. I believe Exeter, how many financial people do you guys have over there? 3? Right. And what's your budget? You're higher than us, we're only about 7 million.
14 million.
Right, so it's what, twice what we have? So we've been understaffed severely since May of 2020. I've been the constant. I've helped with Colleen, and now we have all these big issues right now, which I believe, Mr. Bittler, you have some responsibility there.
No, Sheila, well, we'd like to thank you for your extra work. I know we did that before, and we appreciate what you've been doing to try to keep everything running in this, like you said, time when there's less staff. So we can just, continue
Okay.
with
Well,
stuff.
I'd like to hear what she says about what I'm responsible for.
Well,
If you'd like to hear it,
well,
I'd like to hear it now.
no.
I'd like
I'm
to
not
hear
obligated nor
No,
inclined, so
Sheila,
I'm
just-
gonna move
it.
on.
You said I'm
to
responsible,
Sarah Smith.
now's your time to say it.
Now, Sheila, we're gonna
This is not a
continue.
court of law, and I believe that would probably fall under personnel, because there's quite a list, Mr. Bittler.
So continue.
Clarification, okay, so now that we have you two, Orlando, Solicitor Orlando, we're not required, if somebody does a right to know, how do we respond to that? Do we just send them a letter and an email saying that we don't have that audio, you would just look for it on YouTube?
The recording of YouTube is not a township function, it's done by a private person.
It's done by me privately and paid for me privately, and there is no need for a right to know request. It's all available on YouTube at Robeson Review.
However, I'm asking what the procedure would be.
This township has a history of not responding to right to know requests, in my opinion, adequately enough, and giving the taxpayer and the residents the information they need. That's one reason why I privately put that YouTube on here. So you don't need to file a request when we did away with Zoom. We did away with Zoom for a variety of reasons. It wasn't being used, it wasn't necessary, it was brought in COVID. We have functions pursuant to Second Township Class Code when somebody's away, as a supervisor occasionally is. There's a whole myriad of reasons. So I'm not sure what the issue is, but YouTube's out there for people, and
So as I was asking Solicitor Orlando, how do I respond to residents
Are
when
you
they
the right to
contact?
know officer?
no, she's not.
You don't have to worry about it. I think Harold is, isn't it? And you need to the extent that it's a township record, you need to provide it in the 5-day period.
But it's not,
That's not, that's right.
That's right.
so we don't have to respond to providing it.
You have to respond to
Right.
every request you receive. You don't have to produce any record you do not have.
So I'm guessing the rest would have to be talked about because it's personnel. Because we have missing records, missing receipts.
And we've
I-
talked about that, yes, we talked about some of that in executive, yes, so that's, personnel, so, alright, so go to L.
All right, the township staff, Dennis and I, we were able to, get information about the grant writer we spoke about at the workshop. However, there may be restrictions. Someone mentioned that when they're working in the same county, it's a conflict. So I'm not sure about that. I wasn't sure if Dennis would have time to look into this, or if you want, I'm a little busy right now.
Yeah, I can look into it. What the concern is if you're competing for the same pool of money and they're representing one township and they have a second township that's competing for that same pool. But
Yeah, but is that pool, county, federal, or state?
could be state or federal, most of it. I mean, I guess actually it could be county depending where the
County,
fund's coming from.
see what you-
But majority of it, I'm saying the biggest state and federal.
Yeah, that's where I don't see the issue, but if it's county money, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That's a smaller pot, and the more people, like you can't understand where they're coming from on that. The state and federal, I don't see why there should be an issue.
Either way, we'll get you the information.
I just want to update the board on, pay scheduler, we've been working with them. I need to get corresponding codes with ADP so we can integrate in pay scheduler into ADP. Dennis has talked about it before, and we're hoping to start beginning of October, but we will continue to use our time card system just to ensure accuracy through the end of the year. Supervisor Steve and Rhodes met with the local business for a quote to replace the carpet at the police building and replace the high traffic area at the administration building.
When was that meeting?
Friday, is that what?
That's me, Friday.
Yeah.
Which were the local businesses?
Roger Ford Company.
Just one.
Yeah, that's all, yeah.
That's in Steve.
Happened to run into him, say, hey, can you give me a price on this? I have no problem in getting other prices, but
Did he give a price?
we have not got the price yet. We kind of just picked what they like. He had a busy day yesterday, carpet was down on this list.
All right, according to the motion by the board in September of 2022, I would like to contact retired manager Easterday to assist with the notarizations and the 2024 budget process. And also Harold asked what the cost was for an employee to obtain a notary. We'll look into that. I believe it's between $400 and $600.
Now, did that motion in September of 22, was that a fixed timeline?
I did not see that. It said that at whatever her current rate was at that time.
That was just a transition, and I'm
Yeah.
opposed to that concept.
I believe you made the motion originally.
Yeah, at the time,
All right,
to
well, then we'll move on.
facilitate it,
Well,
we can get a notary in here without a big to-do, I'm certain. And we don't need Ms. Easterday's assistance on the budget.
Oh, I thought you guys would work well together, since she's been doing it for years. What's your financial backing, Mr. Bitler?
Do you understand, Mr. Chairman, what's happening? You understand? Now, you have a question about my financial backing, is that true?
For understanding finances,
I-
because we had some issues with our
I
previous.
think I have relatively broad. You know, everything from federal tax courses, I mean, I can go
I'm
on
glad
and
to
on.
hear that, they don't make it go easier for the
Well,
board.
what the problem is not just the budget. What the problem is, folks, is the spending of money, the failure to control your expenses. That's the issue. Whether it's a public works director sending multiple guys out when we could have things shipped in. There's 100 ways, whether it's firing an employee and then having to pay to reinstate it, not to get hundreds of thousands. We're not talking a little bit here. So yeah, I have an issue because these roads have been neglected in this township. There's gonna be tax increases at some particular point to cover this downfall. We have not watched our finances. In my opinion, the expenses. Now, Mr. Rhodes brings up an interesting thing. I'll be certainly looking into that. But that's my opinion. We have not done a good job watching our expenses.
Well, then I'm gonna take this time as a 6-year employee with in-depth knowledge of the overall workload and staffing needed to handle the daily operations of the township in line with the township budget. I recommend the township hire a township manager, one, to oversee the office staff and public works, and to hire 2 road crew members and a full-time administrative assistant, because we need workers.
Well, and we did have the stuff we'll discuss in executive interviews.
So you're advocating hiring a manager? We
No,
have
I'm
one.
not saying
No,
that.
that's what she just
But,
said.
but we're not making a motion because we've
No.
already
Well,
made.
I see this in
I
here.
want this as a public record. I am
We've
telling you,
already made
as an
motions.
employee,
Why is this on the budget
Well,
in this
it-
fashion?
it
This
doesn't
is-
say it's
this-
about the budget.
No, why is this in the agenda?
On the finances, because let me explain. If you get 2 people, one over the administrative staff and one over the public works, we're looking at about $200,000. You get one, that's $100,000. And we can get 2 road crew. So yes, I do have financial experience. So that's my opinion. I wanted it on the record, and I'll decide how we'll move forward from here.
Have interviews.
I don't understand why it's still an agenda item, Mr. Chairman. I don't
It'll
understand.
be in the minutes too. Thank you, Harold, for doing the last 3 months of minutes since our manager did not,
We'll discuss, that's part of our executive session
which is
personnel,
critical.
to review
if you're not
interviews that understand happened, so we did, so that's part of what we discussed last week. Anything else you know?
Nope, that's it. For now. I have stuff later on, don't worry.
Chief?
I have nothing.
Oh,
come on. By the way,
we talked a lot about.
remind everybody about Halloween.
October 31st, which is a Monday at our firehouse during 6 to 9. That's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. We have an open house, trick or treat, fire truck or treat, so whole community's invited.
On Thursday, folks, we had both fire companies do a public presentation. They were originally, unbeknownst, I think, to the public, originally they were requested, I still don't understand, to do an executive session on non-executive session material. When I objected to that, we then had a public meeting, and the outcome of that public meeting, I don't see the fellow tonight, was someone else participating in the public process. There was no grounds for that executive session, as has been in the past. That's consistent with our solicitor's opinion. Not to put words in your mouth, Mr. Orlando.
That's what he said, that's why we did it in public.
Well, we weren't going to do it in the public until I objected. And that's the 4th time this year, fellas. 4th time. The same thing when you announce an executive session. It is not sufficient, in my opinion, to just say, we had an executive session on a personnel matter or on a legal matter. We need to take one step further pursuant, to my opinion, in the law and give some fleshing to that, some context, some detail, so you folks know what's going on. And to that extent, I will do that. If my colleagues refuse, I want to meet privately or in the parking lot, that's up to them. I'm not going to do that.
So what you're talking
Well,
about
we're
now
gonna
is
keep-
transparency?
Yeah, we're gonna keep going here, so we got,
I'll make a motion that we approve the workshop minutes for June, July, August, and September, and the regular meeting minutes for June, July, and August.
Mr. Steve, are you suggesting the last workshop session just on Thursday?
I am.
Wow, there's no way they are ready for prime time, and neither are the other minutes.
No, wait, they were sent out.
They were sent out, and I asked for some comparisons, I asked for some things. There is no way on 4 days we need to have these things approved. There's no way from September, so I'm a no vote.
well, when you are on June, July, August.
No, I'm a no vote. We don't have to rush when there's allegations that something wasn't done properly, and then we come charging in to try and fix the mess, so-called mess. I mean, I think it takes a little study. There's no harm in waiting a month. We waited all this time.
We're trying to approve June minutes
Well,
because they were left language.
well, okay.
We're trying to approve July's
Okay,
minutes.
and I'd like to
because
make
we're
sure it's
left
right.
language.
What is the harm in waiting a month? I'd like to make sure it's right. What's the harm in waiting a month?
You wanted minutes, you wanted all emails, and I think that
Absolutely.
I got comments from Chris, and I got comments from Jeff on the minutes. I got comments from Dennis, he found nothing. And I don't know that I got comments from anyone else.
Well, you made a motion to accept the minutes that you just announced, right?
Yes.
Would anyone like to make a second for that?
How do you put in something from Mr. Rhodes, adding a sentence, and then there are other sentences and other things, no offense, Mr. Rhodes, left out? We've got a cryptic email from Mr. Rhodes indicating you wanted something put in for some other reason I don't really understand.
Yeah, that was for September. That was
And
for
the change was
a
made.
July or August meeting that I was creating minutes for because they were not done.
It was just a quote that I had added after watching Robeson reveal.
So you used my YouTube
They
to
weren't.
do a quote.
Well, yeah,
What we need
because-
to do is put.
Because we don't have video
What we
anymore
need to
for
have,
Tuesday,
what we need
which
to have
coming
is
back in
more
January.
quotes. So it's coming back in
So
January. You're talking about.
I went on there, heard what the person said, and it wasn't documented properly. So I just sent an email saying this should be added in.
Like other
this.
things not
So-
documented properly in the minutes.
But then you let people know and they make
Alright, we
corrections
have a
and we
motion,
move
we
forward
have a
and conduct
motion,
business
We have a
in a
motion,
timely
we
manner.
have a second.
What's the motion for?
Harold, you wanna repeat your motion to approve which minutes?
So yes,
Jeff would like a clarification.
Hey,
I'll repeat the motion. Approve the workshop minutes for June, July, August, September, and the regular meeting minutes for June, July, and August.
Galen already seconded, actually.
Okay.
I didn't,
So, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
I'll vote yes.
Mr. Bittler.
No.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Alright, and anyone like to make a motion to accept the SEO reports received?
I'll make a motion if we accept the reports in our possession.
For the rest of, okay, I'll second. Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Alright, engineering.
Good evening, board. We have discussed my agenda items at workshop. The first item that I have is another 90-day time extension requested by the Cedar Hill Estate subdivision. The reasoning put forth from their request was that they are still working with DEP permitting and hope to have a meeting with DEP later this month.
I'll make a motion that we grant a 90-day extension to Cedar Hill Estates.
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll second the motion.
Who was the second?
Mr. Rhodes.
I'll second the motion.
Before we move on, that's part of your report.
Indeed it is, yes.
And you're just struggling here with your report, that the actual request is in here too?
It is, yes.
it's in the workshop packet from last Thursday, so it's in the one on your notebook there.
So we have a motion and a second. So roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yeah.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
Yeah, I don't change it typically between the workshop and the regular meeting. Second item that I have is a 90-day time extension requested by the Deeds Homestead 2 subdivision. This is to allow continued testing for perks and probes, as I understand.
I'll make a motion that we grant that extension.
I'll second. Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler.
Are we still engaged in the process of asking the applicants, if you will, the developers, and giving them a copy of the policy?
Correct. So
They're still getting that?
correct. So when the request goes out, the policy is attached, so is the standard form that the township utilizes.
Right. And you're kind of surfacing these, or, you know, watching these to see if they have, in your opinion, some legitimate reasons?
Yes,
I mean,
and
part of the mess we have now, folks, is because we've left extensions go on and on. That's my opinion. And hear me, it's gonna cost us millions of dollars.
the one that we have kind of lingering around Supervisor Bittler is the Cedar Hill Estates project. And they are tracked pretty closely by the planning commission. And we did have those folks in, I don't think, it's been a few months now, but for an update. We may be coming due for that again.
It's not the one that's gonna cost us millions
So
of
this
dollars.
is, we gonna vote deeds?
Yeah, I'll vote yes.
Supervisor Rhodes?
Yes.
And I'll yes.
Thank you. The next item C under my agenda can be struck from the agenda that was previously before the planning commission and not recommended to come before you. Final item that I have is we've received a payment application for the paving contract for this year's street work. I have before me a signed change order and payment application. This change order is for a contract value reduction of $1,584.01 and a resulting contract price of $333,582.49. Again, that has been signed by Construction Master Services and is here for your approval tonight if the board sees fit.
And all the work has been.
For that contract, yes.
Okay. And the amount was $332,589.
The amount
We're approving for
is $333,582.49.
$582.49. All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize the change order with a reduction of $1,584.01 to
$82.49.
$82.49.
I'll second. Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Bittler,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
Thank you very much. I will have these here to be signed tonight. That's all I have unless the board has questions for me.
Any word on projects for next year?
No, we're gonna meet about that and I'll have that for you in October.
Okay, because we're gonna need that for budget.
All right, Solicitor Orlando.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The items on my agenda were mentioned at the workshop meeting. I was able to do a markup of the preliminary draft that I believe Harold and Rich had worked on of the short-term rental regulatory ordinance. I went through it and made some suggested edits that I thought would be important and appropriate. I sent it to the board. I did get comments back from Harold and Chris. I did not receive any comments from the others. I don't know whether we should take additional time to have you review that. But I'm more than happy to take any other comments or suggestions when if and when the board moves forward with adopting the zoning amendments. It would be important to adopt this at the same time, although this would be a separate chapter, not amending the zoning ordinance per se, it's amending our code. So, if we're not ready to finalize this, then I think that will also impact what we should do about the actual zoning amendment, which we've also been kicking around, and which I think, I circulated what I think is the final draft of that, to the board. I believe that was, last week. The other thing, excuse me, directly ties into this. If the board remembers, the township was approached, by, I believe the company was a Brubaker, and they asked for the township to consider amending our zoning ordinance to permit the use of property to store explosives in a magazine area. And you, at the meeting that I attended that I recall, I think you suggested that they prepare an ordinance and send it to the planning commission, which they did. That was a planning commission meeting that I did not attend. And after that meeting, I received an email from Attorney Strong, who represented the applicant, with a draft, a revised draft ordinance, where Attorney Strong indicated that he felt that his revision was reflective of what he understood the planning commission comments to be. I brought this up at the planning commission meeting that I attended, and I also attempted to look at the draft minutes, and I could not find the concerns in the minutes that may have been discussed. So I asked the planning commission members what they recalled, and they provided some comment, one of which was a provision in the draft that he did not see. So I also said to the planning commission, as I have, I think, suggested to this board, that when we do zoning amendments, and this would be a zoning amendment if you want to move forward, we want to try to do all zoning amendments in one ordinance. It is both practically and economically prudent to do that. I told you last Thursday that I was going to try to go through the proposed ordinance from Attorney Strong and report to you tonight. I was able to do that, but I unfortunately was not able to do it until earlier today. So I just had the chance to send it to you prior to our meeting, and I'm reasonably sure that most people did not have a chance to take a look at it. So I did send it to Attorney Strong and told him I was asked by the planning commission to look through this. I looked through it, here are my comments. So I sent him a draft of my comments, but he understands that, you know, I don't have his feedback either. So my suggestion would be, because we were originally kicking around the idea that this board might want to authorize a public hearing for the short-term rental zoning amendments. And if you do that tonight, we could make the either November Board of Supervisors meeting to schedule a public hearing at the same time. But if you haven't had a chance to look at this regulatory ordinance, and I think this is a pretty big deal, I think it would be prudent, even though I don't want to make the short-term rental thing take any longer than it already has, but I would suggest that you might want to take another month, take a look at this, see whether or not you, number one, want to do it, number two, whether you agree with my suggested edits, and then it will take me a couple, some bit of time, but not a great deal of time, to combine them into one ordinance. But I didn't want to do that until I know what direction the board wants to go. So my own suggestion is we have the board take whatever time you want between now and next month on looking at the explosive magazine ordinance.
We meet on October the 10th. And
Well, you could have, you could do
If they,
that.
if they haven't done, they're finished and ready to go, we can certainly advertise it at that, vote to advertise it at that time.
Okay, but at October tenth, if you're,
It was
I
so
can't-
at our November meeting, I'm sure.
no, I can't make, not for a zoning amendment, can't make that. That puts us into December no matter what, because once you advertise for the public hearing, we need to send the Berks County Planning Commission, and they have 30 days
Okay.
for zoning amendments. And then our public hearing requirements are once a week for 2 weeks, not more than 30 or less than 7 for the ordinance adoption hearing. And when I looked at the calendar, I'll look at it again, Harold, but, I don't think October 10th gives you the right amount of time. I can look again right now. But I can tell you, if you vote on October 10th, I'm gonna need a day or two to combine the ordinances before they're ready to be shipped out to the planning commission.
My question is on, I remember questions from the board on the necessity of this ordinance, because I remember people saying both parties must be doing something for explosive storage. Whether they're bringing somebody in to do their blasting, or they're storing it on site, I don't know.
I don't know, but I'm under the impression that Dyers bring somebody in.
We had an accident, was that a month ago? There was a blasting truck coming in with all the materials and the guys to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, I was pretty sure they got rid of their
Buyers used to have their own,
I think that's allowed, so please don't.
what they were doing now. And the second thing was that went along with that, there had been in the industrial area located off the Chestnut Hill Road originally, that was zoned industrial in there because Grace Mines owned the property at one time in there, and their magazines for storing powder were on that piece of property and backed up against what's now state game lines. Now, they made some kind of comment when they came in here and said, well, there's not enough room there for a magazine now, or something to that effect. And I don't know if that's our problem or not. I mean, it's state game lands behind it, but there's all kinds of residential development that was allowed in Carver Township next to it.
Differentiate, Galen, between the use and remember, the zoning is what goes on the property. Our ordinance has a catch-all. We have what they call a safe harbor for anything that's not otherwise provided in the industrial zone. But the argument that was made by the proposed applicant here was that the actual storage requirements in order to get DEP and federal permitting, there would be no properties in the industrial zoning district in our township that would safely accommodate the storage. And that was where they came up with the idea of adding it as a use in agricultural preservation, but with large setbacks, like 100 acres and 100 feet from any property line or boundary. And that's what I thought was the impetus for, and it's not to say that we have to do anything, but I think it was that presentation where the board said, well, we'll look at an order. And that's as far as we've gone, as far as I know. We said we would look at one. We didn't say we would adopt,
Right.
and I don't think you have to, but,
Those are what I remember the arguments being, that's strictly all I'm saying. I'm not saying I have an opinion one way or the other, but that's what it came about. And I don't know, like I said, pretty well established that Tires is bringing somebody in for class now, but I don't know what Hazy Hill is.
well, just, all I need is direction from the board as to what, if anything, you would like to do with the, with that Well,
You could review the explosive ordinance, since you just said it.
I mean, my opinion is if it's something where our ordinance is going to be found to be in default, then we have to address it.
it is not an express discrete use provided for in our township. We have joint planning, I think. I have not reviewed other ordinances among our joint plan, so I cannot opine to you as to whether or not we have an exclusionary argument. You always have an exclusionary argument when even you provide for something, but that the practical reality of the map does not allow you to ever do it. And that is an argument that can be made against any ordinance when you have, like we have. And it's not a bad thing that we have, but we have a provision that says anything that we didn't provide for, we're putting in industrial by special exception. So, I won't sit here and tell you we are exclusionary or we're not. That's, first of all, that would be a private conversation legitimately. And secondly, I'm not prepared to I haven't done the analysis. All I know is, we told them we would look at an ordinance. I've now had a chance to look at it, and then I've made what I think are significant.
Yeah, I saw your comments come in on the email, but I did not have time.
Yeah, I know, well, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, and to go back to Harold's question, if you had a meeting and you approved or authorized the public hearing, and if I were able to combine the ordinance the next day and then send it out to the planning commission, we could make the regular November meeting, not the workshop meeting.
That's a few weeks.
Okay.
So what's
Which
everybody's,
I will do my best to do if that's the board's direction.
well, what's everybody's pleasure for both of them? I mean, obviously, we just got the explosive ordinance, but then the short-term rental.
Well, I think it's, we have to look at where we're at with this thing. I'm sure there's gonna be a couple of questions that need to be answered quickly.
Which one, the short-term vote?
No, I'm talking about the magazine thing. The other thing, we are joint with Union, which has several fireworks, which are ATF explosive places.
I know them
So, okay,
intimately, if not.
so we are covered by whatever would be covered in a joint plan. And the other thing is if my memory is right, this isn't by right when we're done this.
No,
They
it'd be
still
by
need to come-
conditional use.
Yeah, so they still need to come here and we have to approve whatever they.
That was the main planning commission comment that was implemented by the revised draft, was that it went from a permitted use to a conditional use. That's right.
So it's just not gonna be,
Do you want to just
a done deal.
both these for October?
yeah,
Alright,
because we can get them both in. at the same time.
just both October.
All right, then, unless the board has any questions, I have nothing further to report.
Alright, thank you. Public Works, I guess, road projects, Ryan, I guess you said it's coming up.
Yes, next week he said.
And the new truck order, quote and specs provided. Says,
The information was provided to the board from Barry, and you guys just need to review it to make a decision. Harold, did you wanna talk about it? I know you were talking.
No, I mean, but every month we let this go is one less month we're gonna be able to use it. I mean, you're still looking 2 years out, even if we ordered it today, so we would have it for the snow of 2025.
Maybe.
Yeah, right, maybe.
what's anybody's pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we, order the truck chassis and the estimated dump body and splitter hydraulic system is $96,594, subject to price increase between now and installation.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yeah, but I think we should have included, when we're hiring that truck and truck body, we should be including one of those belt loaders on the back for road lighting purposes. than $6,000 for the belt.
We can
Hey.
do that later.
2 years from now, when they're putting it together, there might be something new came out.
Is that you said yes then?
Yeah, otherwise, yes.
Mr. Bitler?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
I vote
You'll be retired.
You'll get to see it go by.
I might have to stick around and see it.
yes. We have to sign quotes from Bridge Door.
I wasn't sure if you approved it at the workshop or you waited till tonight to do it.
It was $1,151.50, is that what it was?
I think so, Harold. I have my workshop back in here.
There was the 51 solicitation signs. Don't forget that. What's the solicitation signs? Anyone like to make that? Motion for that?
I'll make a motion, we purchase the signs at whatever the quote is. I think it's $1,151.50 or something like that.
Yeah, that was either that or solicitation signs. And that law, second, roll call, Mr. Steve,
Yeah.
Mr. Brown.
Yeah.
Mr. Bitler.
Mr. Chairman, what are we voting on now?
It's XIC, and it's in the work packet.
Talking about sign quote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, solicitation, no solicitation signs.
You were close, 1151.50. Is that what you said, or did you say a
Yeah.
different change?
We were
And
saying,
we did the solicitation signs on Thursday. And but this was
This is the,
This is-
Oh, this is
rock
the
out
road-
the bridge.
That's
Yeah.
1492.40.
the solicitation signs or something. So, what's the amount there on?
1,000.
1492.40, so show us that.
$14.92.40.
Mr. Bittner,
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes.
I vote yes.
And Harold made the motion, you seconded it?
I say. And we'll discuss our public works applications. Review everybody for the interviews. Park and Rec,
We just wanted to update the board, we're still looking for some of the quotes that were, obtained and put together with our own, but the Park and Rec Board really wants to move forward on seal coating the basketball and volleyball courts, which Mr. Steve would like to turn the volleyball court into a pickleball court. He had provided some information to the board about bathroom door locks, so we're gonna get prices on that, which is a code. So there'll be a phone number on the door, they can call us, we can give them the code and they can use the bathroom. We don't have to worry about unlocking and locking or having someone there. We've been talking about power washing and painting of Gibraltar Park Pavilion, concession and dugouts. And then Jeff said about the diamond tax would be better in the spring, so we'll coordinate with the baseball coaches for timing before and provide quotes for a motion then. That's all I have. Oh, besides old business.
yeah, I guess Rich sent that email out a couple months ago, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
but we have to go back and get,
Notice I recall though, it was for here, not that there.
Right.
the door locks or the
No,
painting?
no,
No,
the
no,
solar,
the
the
solar.
solar.
Oh, the solar.
I think the.
I wasn't sure, Howard and I were
I
talking
think
about
the,
it,
which, yeah, it was for the fields, not the.
Yeah, so-
but we wanna,
I guess the question is would they be willing to take that versus that?
If that's what we want
If
to
it's
do.
We just
Potential
need to
revenue.
authorize, somebody to say, yeah, go ahead and do that.
I guess we gotta find that email and get it back out there, but
Okay.
if you remember the email, Rich did, if you want. Alright, I guess we need some executive session.
In old business, we went from no comment on Boontown Road bids to a motion, something about solar.
Oh, we're not doing that, that was just an email, we're not gonna make a motion, that was just an email from Rich did.
How's it on the agenda?
I think that should give more information.
we want more information. That's all.
We need an executive session.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to talk about the works.
Yeah.
With the order,
I don't know if it's even
What are we talking about, Harold, to go to the order, what are we talking about?
I said, I don't know, I said, do we have anything? I would
Go to the order before you go to executive.
No, I didn't have, it. Nobody told me to put anything in that.
They're going to executive.
Jeff, do I bother? From the executive?
Supervisor Philip, do you need to stick around after executive or?
Do I need you?
Yeah, I'm asking the board. Anybody?
Always need.
We have some
I
stuff
can't
to
think of
sign.
anything specific.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Wherever the pipe is, you gotta do that.
We have an
That
issue
should be
with
the-
Jeff, you need to stick around.
the address.
Yeah.
What do we do about that? I do, I would like, I don't wanna come alone.
Oh, you want me to?
Is that okay?
Yeah, you want me to?
They made the deal with DEP years ago.
You must be focused.
This has been a nightmare for us. It's all about Green Hill. Green Hill State, the whole area is fake.
This and that, and that's probably just not- But yeah, they've been basically PA for like.
Can I get some signatures from you before you go?
What time did you call this? 8:49. I have 8:49.
This is the change order statement there.
I'll stick around and see it.
Don't leave now.
No, and more taking the better than the outcome.
All I have to say is.
What's that? No, not yet.
It's very explosive. Where do you drop there, right? Town Square.
I was in your truck.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the rest of your
I'm
year.
retired once, so my Steve but everybody's different.
I stay home.
What?
Sometimes
Yeah. Oh, hey, nice to meet you.
Keep busy.
So I try and keep on working, washing clothes. I try to do it because he has a cold that
Get out of here, Ryan. I have my contract signed.
Where she works?
I saw that post. She actually was gone like 20 minutes ago. I told them what they were doing. You can go. I'm like, I'm not getting up. You said no, I'll be there by.
Got relieved of duty.
Oh, yeah. If he doesn't, he'll tear up the house.
It's better than Zoom. Zoom, there was one or two,
oh, I'm sorry.
and you can't read.
You can't watch it later.
Right.
That's it.
At least the YouTube you can watch, because I was away, I watched it yesterday. You gonna enjoy that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they usually stand outside or whatever.
What's that?
They usually stand outside until they the thing, and then everyone comes back in for a minute.
Is there a copy of the agenda?
I think they're on that table.
You want water?
No, I'm good.
I don't know, that's a good sign. No, the arguments and the entertainment. Yeah, try one of those good topics.
general commercial, maybe, yeah, general commercial. And we put up a fight along with a bunch of other people, so they kept ours as residential. Yeah. Did you need, like, feeling better?
Yeah, it's
Something?
better.
Yeah. Do you live in Robeson Township?
Yeah.
You live right near Glass Upholstery, don't you?
Yeah, come on, sit down.
Was that your grandfather? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the business still a business?
Yeah, my uncle's doing it.
Oh, okay. So you're down in here somewhere. Cause that's Chapel Road. So High Point's right here. That's Furnace Road. And Furnace comes out there. So that's Chapel, and then this is Union Township.
So that's White Bear, Hay Creek,
Yeah.
then Furnace, Chapel. So Chapel would come out to, so down. Where's this Hay Creek
I think this is it. This is Hay Creek Road.
Hay Creek.
Cause that's probably Mounts Road, right?
Unless it, right here. Cause that's that,
Oh, it
think
comes
it's
down and
Mounts
turns.
Road,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then the other mouth should go this way now. I guess I'm there
So
somewhere.
that's saying Village Commercial. See, Birdsburg had a structure fire?
Yeah. Supposed to be all that.
Yeah, I'm surprised we weren't called.
I don't think the car's changed over yet.
Do you know who fixed the tire on the tanker?
Their name was.
What initial name again?
Hmm. I forget who it was. What company it was.
Probably not good for that to sit around as much as it does, you know?
Tanker.
Yeah.
I was trying to take it out for drives, but when he got banged up, I couldn't really.
I mean, it could sit for weeks, right? Or,
Yeah.
that's a lot of weight on those tires.
Yeah.
I was seeing you getting under your skin last night.
I was. I was starting to not have it. Just gets worse and worse.
See, he really bothered me when he first came, but he doesn't bother me as much anymore for some reason.
It's a little better, but it's still.
I was trying to start the chainsaw on the attack last night, and I must have flooded it. And Stanley goes, I could probably start that in one pull. But I'm not allowed.
No, he couldn't. He's not allowed for another 2 or 3 years. So
Is he 16 yet? I
I don't know if he was 15 or 16.
Where's your office that you go into?
Off of, California Road.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know where it is. There's like that little market real quick, like right down the road from it, isn't there? Or am I thinking this? Do they have another location where they keep equipment or something?
So if you go down 10 and make a run to Shiloh Road, you know where that's at? Right before, like, if you're going down 10, you pass the Heritage on the right.
Yeah.
Keep going, it's the next, like, it's the turn right before the Turnpike Bridge.
Okay.
You go all the way down, take that all the way out to California Road, make a left. And then it's down past Swamp Road.
Swamp Road, make a left on California, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought, so going that way before you get to where you're talking about on the left, I thought there was like a little market there that, like they have chicken barbecues out there, and they used to sell trees, like tree or elevated blinds or something. They had one or two sitting out there anyhow.
Oh, at the intersection there. They usually have them sitting at the the blinds. Because I think they have them there now. At the intersection of like Swamp and California, they have a blind there.
Right there, Woods Lane, is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta find this place now. Maybe I'm thinking, maybe it's on a different road.
you staying? Are you staying till the end, or? It's up to you.
No, I don't care. Me.
Supervisor Drum.
Unless,
I didn't look at the comments.
it might be from, who has that?
The people came to do the demonstration with us.
Yeah, but there's another, I think it's Western Berks has drone too.
Were you at that silent fire 2 years ago? Were you there like for 8 hours?
I was there from dispatch until probably around, I don't know, maybe 2 o'clock or something, cause I was working with John at the time, and I had to go, we were leaving to go to Delaware to work. So I had to leave, go back, get all my stuff, and go to work. Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah, they can explode.
Yeah, wouldn't mind never doing one of those again.
say?
I said I'm fine with going. I eat something too. It's up to you though.
Ready? You ready to go?
If you want to.
I'm Iron Man.
guy in with the suit.
A little chilly out there. They were there from Thursday. If you watch the YouTube video, it tells you that.
What are you saying?
Those glasses were there since Thursday. In the video at the end, it said someone left their glasses. I think Carol was talking about it.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah.
They're like, they Larry Pearsall and
Back road.
Hughes were sitting back there, and if Dave Hughes didn't take off, they gotta be Pearsall's.
Well, they look kind of like a lady's glasses.
Alright, we're back into regular session at 9:36.
Alright, so I will make a motion to hire a public works employee by the name of Ryan Kelly at the current rate as defined by the collective bargaining unit.
I'll second the motion.
That's one employee we're hiring, right?
Yes.
Yep,
Roll call, Mr. Steve.
yep.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Bittler.
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes.
Yes.
Robert, yes.
He has a Class A CDL?
Yes.
Motion to dismiss, Mr. Chairman, is that what you're looking for?
I'm looking for the official time,
I'll make a motion to,
9:37.
make a motion to adjourn here this evening.
9:37, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, let's start the sign.